Just curious.
What?
Just curious. There's no way I'm down there at the car. Just curious if you did. That's all.
I'm scared of the homeless people.
Slow panoramic shot.
Whatever you might exist as in between jobs.
Right.
So between jobs, you're just like growing your facial hair and growing your hair on the top of your head as much as you can, because then you don't know what you're going to do next. So I just want to do whatever fits that character I'm playing, which I think it's also kind of strange, right? Now, like, people play a mailman and they have like a 12-pack, and I'm like, what is this guy going to the gym all the time? I say all the time, but it's like, it's like I think that the death of the artist is like when the ego takes over, not serving the person you're playing, it's kind of serving your own self of the person you're playing. Right. So I'm just trying to be as different as possible from me and make people know the character is not me.
For my last question before we get you guys out of here, what's the next thing that we can look forward to seeing you in? Your next project.
I got a movie coming out on the 6th called Escape the Field.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I got True Stories out right now. I got Gene, behind the scenes Gene, that poor bastard.
Yeah.
And then there's another one out right now called Devil You Know, and then we've been doing ever since that movie premiered at Sundance, that's coming out with Roadside August 12th, Emily the Criminal with me and Aubrey Plaza, that's coming out.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah,
Busy man, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Rob, what about you?
There's a picture coming out in a couple of weeks called The Last Victim. I play a sheriff. There's a picture coming out, hopefully before the end of the year, called The Baker. I play what you think is a baker. And
But he ain't no baker.
He ain't no baker.
I mean, he's a baker, but he used to be something else.
Oh, something gonna cook. That's what you're telling me. Okay, I got
Somebody's
you.
getting cooked.
Something getting cooked. I got you. In the kitchen. Okay.
DC?
No DC Comics
No,
stuff?
I don't do studio films. I don't do commercial films.
He's an artist. He's an artist.
Moonwalkers.
The artist.
I want to.
Moonwalkers.
I like it.
Okay, I'm gonna raise my hand.
That was about 4 years
I'm
ago.
gonna try to.
Yeah.
5 years ago.
And on that note, FanExpo Cleveland, make some noise. Definitely come visit the Reserve Rooms. Check them out for the photo ops, all that good stuff. Thank you, guys. Okay. Which iteration?
Charles Lawton was the star of it. Maureen O'Hara. Edward O'Brien. And I'll... Hang on, let me get my...
Here we go, Google machine.
Let me
You
Google
got
who
this.
directed it.
Yeah. But what about that performance got you? Who, was it a particular character or the story in general?
It was the juxtaposition of somebody who's outwardly completely unacceptable and yet who's got the most beautiful soul of anybody as far as the eye can see. And, you know, for a kid who's looking for comfort, that movie, that performance, that character is...
I love it. I love it.
It's therapy, man. It's like you're gonna be okay. You can be okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Beautiful. I love that. Theo, what about you?
I mean, I fell completely ass backwards into the whole career thing. So it wasn't until like doing it for a minute and then looking back, like that I realized that those were relatable to the situation where I was like, oh, that reminds me, like Saturday Night Fever is one.
Right.
Where like that felt, I know those people. I know the people from Goodfellas, Mean Streets, most of Scorsese's stuff. I know them. When I came up, like, you know, when I was young and watching Pulp Fiction, it felt real. So the movies felt closer.
Right.
And then, you know, when I stumbled into my first acting school in New York and you saw like, it was at Lee Strasberg, so you saw Hyman Roth and Al Pacino and, you know, Marilyn Monroe and all this. It felt so far away when I was younger. But then as you got there and realized that these people studied in these classrooms and this thing, it felt closer. So all those films that were kind of filmed where I grew up felt closer. So that, I guess that kind of made me want to do it, but it was like in hindsight.
When it comes to an experiential effort from TV to movies, what's your favorite takeaway from that? Is there a favorite format? Do you prefer TV? Do you prefer film? What's your piece on that?
I like I mean, like Ron's watching Lost for the first time right now, and
Wait,
I like,
what?
yeah, and I'm such a huge fan of that show, and that was kind of like what JJ did with Alias. I like shows that end and you have to watch the next episode.
Okay.
Where you're like, like Sons did that, where it's like,
Yes,
wait,
they did.
I don't care what time it is, I have to turn that back on.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Even if I watch, let's just watch the first 10 minutes and then you watch like 3 more episodes. I like stuff like that, and I think that the big difference now is that with something like Sons, why it resonates so many years later is you lived with the audience for like 8 years, where now we watch shows in like 2 days, 3 days, so we don't have that connection to the people on them, and we kind of forget about them because then we watch 4 other shows. So yeah, I think that I like shows that are weekly,
Right.
and that you have to watch the next
Yeah.
episode.
I like that. Ron, you've got a lot of experience when it comes to a mix of TV and film. Do you have a preference?
Well, you know, the process is the exact same.
Right.
If you're acting on a television show, you're acting on a movie. If you're acting for the camera, it doesn't really matter whether it's a TV show or a movie. what's being asked of you is identical. You know, you have to understand the story that you're in, why you're in it, and then you have to. Your job is to find to make the audience believe that this character that is the result of some writer's imagination actually exists in the world and is real and relatable and somebody who's interesting enough to make the audience want to watch. So that's the process. The only difference is a movie only takes usually a few months, where you could be on a TV series like Sons for 6 years.
Yeah.
Then it becomes kind of more like a lifestyle than a job. But no, it's the exact same process.
I do want to open it up for you guys. If you guys have questions, again, there's 2 microphones, so feel free to line up. I see somebody already jumping up right now. We'll start it off. Hello, friend.
I am such a fan, and I'm going to be honest, I never really watched Connery, but I want to. I'm just wondering, what do you think? What do either of you think made it so successful? Like The Godfather was about family? What? Because, you know, if it's just about bikers, like The Walking Dead, if it's just zombies, that's a gimmick. What do you think made it successful?
Well, I think we love our violence.
Yeah!
So we checked off that box. And we love vigilante justice because we live in a society where people are walking all the time and getting away with shit. And, you know, we in our culture at least, sometimes we get it right, where, you know, some dude's got it coming and boom, he gets whacked. And we dig that. And so Sons of Anarchy was its own sort of sovereign nation with its own rules and regulations, its own laws, and anybody who crossed a certain line, they took care of it. They didn't wait for the long arm of the law to completely fuck it all up. You know, they just took care of it.
Yes,
People
sir.
like to watch that. That's why we love gangster movies. That's why we love movies about the mafia. You know, something goes wrong, the ecosystem cleans it up. There's no slipping through the cracks because you got a lot of money or you got the right lawyers or, you know, you're just made of Teflon.
What about you, Theo? What do you think?
Well, I think the appeal of street justice, that you actually can do something, right? Especially as we get more powerless as, you know, a people, we feel like we don't have as much control. So when you see people that take control, the Sons they took control. You cross them, you're in trouble, right? If you speak a certain way, you're in trouble. So it's that living vicariously through those characters that we love. And I think also anything that's like a situational TV show or a situational movie where you can imagine yourself. I remember we used to do these, and you'd see years ago people would have shirts on that say like, "What would Gemma do?" And they would be living through that character because she would do whatever she wanted. But at the heart of it all, and the heart of any good story, is family, and that was a show about family. That's at the heart of it. And at the heart of anything, because right, wrong, or indifferent, we all have families. Whether we agree with them, we don't like them, or we love them. So we all relate to that aspect. So I think that was the big part of the show.
I love that you guys are relating like the actual core factor of the show. People can erroneously watch and go, "Oh, it's about, you know, bikers, it's about crime." But you're like, no, it's about power and unity of individuals that otherwise would have no power. And there's something very magical about that. That even when you're not necessarily a biker fan, you're a fan of the Avengers. It's the same scenario and the same style of story. That's brilliant. I love that you guys said that. Thank you. Hello, Beetlejuice.
First, Theo, I just watched True Story. You were awesome. I think you're my favorite character.
Make some noise for that, y'all.
Hellboy. I'm going to show my grandchildren those movies. It's awesome. But my question is, after...
Are you going to be dressed like that when you show them?
Till the day I die. Everybody loves Beetlejuice.
I want to keep that image in my head, like you and your grandchildren.
That's right.
And everything.
Yeah.
But my question is, after Sons Wrap, did you guys take anything from the set that you still have today?
I took Katie Seagal. She's tied up in my basement.
You gonna let her out to do Futurama?
I let her out when she gets a firm offer. She's gonna help me with the rent, you know what I mean?
Yeah!
from his shower. To keep them wet.
Yeah.
I would have taken his underwear, but he didn't wear any. But you know.
Everybody just got pregnant right there. Wow. Hello.
Hello. My question is, in today's Hollywood, with so many like reunion specials and shows coming back after years off, obviously not signed due to various events that occur, is there anybody in your past, a role that you played that you'd love to get back into? Theo thinking maybe Shades, MCU's involved?
Yeah, I said, someone asked me this the other day. I think that I don't like when any of my I think the reason why I like dying in things, which I do a lot, is that the characters aren't floating.
Yeah.
Shades is floating somewhere. Like, I knew what was going to happen in season 3, and then everything changed, right, when Disney took over. To see Kingpin back, to see, Daredevil back, I mean, I would love, because he's floating. I know where he is in my head, and I read season 3, so even though it wouldn't be the same, so I would like to kind of close that chapter. So they have to die, or something has to happen to them. I don't like them floating. So Shades for me.
Ron, what about you?
You know, there's shows that you do where you say, there's nothing left to say. We've said it all. There's no reason to keep going. It was great while it lasted. Yep. Arrivederci. And then there's certain shows where there's so much more that you wish you had said. Like, I did a show called Startup, which never even got canceled. It was just on a piece of shit network that just kind of unceremoniously stopped making it. And then Netflix picked it up, and it was as if it had just premiered, even though it was 4 years old at the time. And it was like #1 on Netflix for about 2 months. I wish there were more episodes of that, because that was such an incredibly fertile world that we only scratched the surface of. It had to do with the dark web and crypto and the FEC making rules about what you can and can't do publicly, and all of the things that people do in order to skirt regulation and stuff like that. It was a really, really interesting world, and we didn't even begin to scratch the surface. So I would love to see that come back.
What about Hellboy Part 3? Wouldn't we like to close that trilogy?
Listen, I mean, I'm so tired of talking about how much I want to give the people the end of the trilogy.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I'm kvetching. I'm like, I'm like that chick you want. Shut up!
But in a hypothetical world, you would like to finish the trilogy.
I think we owe it to the fans to finish it.
You're absolutely right. Hello, friends.
Hi, I have a question about your experience on In the Name of the Rose with Sean Connery. And how did you love that role?
I love that role. I loved that experience, and I loved Sean Connery was as close. I'm like old enough to be a fan of a generation that very few people even watched in like the 30s and 40s, when men who were movie stars were really movie stars.
Yeah.
And Sean Connery was the closest thing in the modern period to the guys who were like Kirk Douglas and Burt Lancaster and Bogey and Cagney. He was the quintessential man's man movie star. Very, very, you just were in the room with him and you knew you were in the presence of something very, very unique and very, very special. And I don't even remember what your question was.
What was your experience with acting with Christian Slater in his first role, and just the whole movie, that movie?
Who?
Christian.
What the fuck was he doing in the movie?
Getting coffee.
No, I mean, for me it was about Sean, and obviously, it was also a movie based on a book that had broken the record for being #1 on the bestseller list for like 200 and some odd weeks. So it was sort of a special kind of gig.
I like it. Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
Hi. I was wondering with.
That's how good this question is about to be. Y'all don't even know.
Dropped the mic.
She dropped the mic and didn't even ask the question.
Party now. Let's go.
There we go. No pressure.
I always wonder if season 4 hadn't taken the turn with the drugs and the cartel, what you think would have happened with Sons. If you think Clay and Jack's relationship would have still dissolved, if Juice would have gone down the path he did, or if that was kind of the catalyst for everything really going downhill.
We're about to do, Tig and I have that podcast, we're almost done with it, where we're watching the show and we're about to do a what if episode, like what if this didn't happen, what if, like in similar to Marvel. So I've had to think about stuff like that. Here's the facts. That was kind of the beginning of, to me, the end of the show. I've said it very publicly. I think when Clay was gone, I think that the show had a bit of a different tone and kind of changed a lot. I just think that it was structured a certain way in the beginning, and it should have been structured that way till the end. From what I'm seeing now that I'm watching it. But you know, you can sit for days and talk about if this didn't happen, if that didn't happen, and the storylines go a certain way. I think that that was always from the beginning, Clay and the John Teller thing, and what was going to happen, and something was going to be revealed. But I think that maybe they probably should have pointed towards the real enemy, which was Gemma, really, in the whole thing, right? Who was controlling all of it. So maybe they could have done the same storyline just with different results. But it was chosen the way it's chosen, and it's why we're here. But I will do a what if episode on, and maybe I'll use that part.
Ron, anything that you would add? You think it would go?
I think Theo said it best, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'd like to talk some more about Sean Connery. No.
We're going to finish this one, and I'll get to you, Ryan. I got you. Hello.
Hi, gentlemen. Nice to meet you. Ron, I loved you in Sons of Anarchy, but actually my first big love for you was actually your voice acting in the original Teen Titans. Which I don't think you get asked about very often. So I think for me, my question is, how do you view voice acting and like differently? How do you approach the process versus on-stage acting, on-screen acting? Because obviously I think there's a different process to it. So like when you were finding the voice for Slade, when you were going through that process, what was it like?
Well, I'm a big fan of, and I work like this in live action too. I'm a big fan of what comes out first take, and with voiceover acting, it's as close to your first initial instinct about the performance as you're going to get, because you're going for performance immediately. There's no rehearsal, there's no discussion, there's no analyzing this, and it's like you show up, they have a certain amount of time in the studio, and you give your performance, and I love that. It's not always right the first time, but it's raw, and it's very kind of like spontaneous. So that's kind of exciting thing for me. That's why I like to go do a lot of voice work, because it keeps you constantly surprising yourself and giving performances that you hadn't had a lot of time to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello. What's up?
What's
Huge
up?
fans. My favorite thing I want to know, what's your favorite scene when you were shooting Sons? I agree with you there. I took a dive after all that. Also, Ron, I'm old school. How I know you is from Beauty and the Beast.
Yes.
That was my jam. That was everything.
Wow.
If they ever rebooted it, would you come back and play the Beast?
Fuck yeah.
I like that.
Does Hellboy make up a lot longer than Beauty and the Beast?
Same exact time, 4 hours.
Wow.
Same designer, Rick Baker.
Really?
Rick Baker did both.
That's amazing.
But he never applied, he just designed.
He designed it. He was the guy who originally worked it out on your face. And then once it's all set in the studio and him agreed that this is the look, then for the day-to-day, a different kind of an artist comes in, somebody who's just there to apply rather than to design and create. So yeah.
Yeah, favorite scenes? What do you
Favorite
got?
scenes?
Yeah.
I just love, now watching it again and looking back, I just love when everybody's together. I like when it was a little more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Because it got so, for lack of a better word, it just got, I don't even like using the word dark, it just got like evil at the end. Like it just got, where so many people were dying and it was so, to me, a little unrealistic, and drive-bys and how you cover it. Like, is there no CSI units in Charming? Like, what's going on here? Why are so many people getting killed? And so I just liked when it was more, I like things when they're smaller. I think it's why I don't like sequels of movies. I like when the first one, when they had no money and they didn't know it was going to be popular.
Right.
And then they get all this money and you're like, why don't they just stick with, like, Fast and Furious in the neighborhood? Why are they in space? What happened here, right? So I like the when we were just in the chapel and we'd be joking around, or I like that kind of stuff.
There were just too many scenes to pick a favorite, but I'm with Theo. To me, what was quintessentially made Sons of Anarchy as special as it was and as different as it was than anything you'd ever seen were those chapel scenes where we're all around the table.
Yeah.
And you're seeing everybody express their different opinions about how shit's supposed to go down. And both while the camera was rolling and when it wasn't rolling, when it was just a bunch of us waiting for them to light the shot and just sitting there, and bullshitting amongst each other, that was the goal for me of hang on, I'm getting a phone call from Godfather.
Godfather ringtone.
That just got serious right there.
Woo! Yeah, I think that's the key with like Sopranos. Even though the show got so big, it always stayed the same way. It was small, and I love when they do that. It's just sometimes success changes things.
Of course. I like that. Hello.
How you doing? This is a question for Ron. Ron, can you talk about working on Drive and how it was with winding Refn to work with him, and also what do you think happened in the end? Does Driver die or does he live? Because it's like, left up to your interpretation.
It was a wonderful experience working with Gosling. Albert Brooks was one of my heroes when I was a really little kid. He was one of the most important comedians on the scene. I was obsessed with him, so being on set with him and going toe-to-toe with him was thrilling. And then Refn had just made a movie. I had seen the Pusher trilogy, which is the one, it was supposed to be one movie, and it was so great that they turned it into a second movie and then a trilogy in Denmark. And then he made a movie in England with Tom Hardy called Bronson, and that blew everybody away. So Drive was going to be his first foray into American cinema, and it was the only time in my career when I lobbied for a meeting and lobbied hard once I got the meeting, like, please hire me. And I almost groveled. In fact, I didn't almost grovel, I groveled. Because he was like, this is a dangerous filmmaker. This is a guy who is like constantly walking right on the edge of going too far, really exciting. It was cool. It was really cool working on Drive, yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
One of the things I think that makes Drive so special is that there's not exactly a good guy in Drive. It's people, and it's varying degrees of righteousness. That's not the same thing as being good.
Well, the interesting thing, is like, it goes back to that question that young lady asked about why people love Sons of Anarchy so much. Yeah. Right around when the studios were all dying and the art form turned into a hero art form into an anti-hero art form, and we began doing more explorations of flawed men who are so interesting to watch, even though they're flawed and even though they're not always good, that the anti-hero took over. And I think that Ryan Gosling in Drive is the perfect example of, you know, he's got beautiful instincts, and he's really trying to be a good man. He's just in a world that prevents him from going all the way with it. So he does the best he can. But in that struggle is the drama of the piece and what makes it interesting. And in the hands of a guy like Ryan Gosling, who I consider to be a tremendous, consummate actor, you're gonna be on the edge of your seat, and you're gonna spend the hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, on the ride.
I love it. Hello, friend. Hey, Ron. I loved Hellboy, by the way. It was awesome. My question is, what actor haven't you worked with that you would like to work with?
Well, I want to work with Theo again.
Yeah.
I worked with him, so that's, you know, but we haven't worked together for a long time. So it's, because I have the onset of Alzheimer's or some sort of dementia, I don't remember working with him.
Wow. So it's like we never worked together.
So it's like we never worked. Anthony Hopkins.
Carrot Top. Yahoo Serious.
And Anthony Hopkins. And Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
Some people call him Tony. I don't know him good enough.
Anthony Hopkins.
Sir Anthony.
What about you, Theo?
Who I want to work with?
Yeah.
I don't care. To be honest, I just want to work with people who aren't like douchebags.
Yeah.
Simple enough.
It's like 1 out of every 100 in this crazy business. So I'll just take I'll play the lotto. No, I just want to work with people who want to do their best work and people who want to take chances. You know, unpredictable. Like, you know, it's such a rarity nowadays that between action and cut, you get people that are just going to explore and just have fun and go for it. And it usually takes a little while to get them there, but just like literally anybody who wants to take chances, because the formulaic nature of what's going on is got to stop. It's got to be more, you know, the reason we love certain movies, why movies sit with us forever, is because people were taking chances, not just as filmmakers, but as actors. So I think we're starting to, hopefully that renaissance is coming back, and people are starting to take more chances. We cheer for movies like Bronson and In the Name of the Rose and Quest of Fire and stuff like that back in the day because people were taking chances. So I like to see that more. And so those are the people I want to work with.
Love it. Thank you. Hello.
Hi guys. So you voiced over your thoughts on the series ending in general. So I was wondering for each of you, like your own personal arcs and storylines, how you feel about how that got wrapped up. Theo, I'm thinking specifically how you started kind of light, like I'm thinking the baby episode where you get dropped off outside the police station. And then going into that darker twist for you, and then Ron play kind of being that like asshole villain kind of the whole time. How satisfied are you with your endings, your arcs?
Stop looking like that, Theo.
You better take this one because I'm way too angry.
No, listen, I thought everything that happened to Juice was perfect. It all happened for a reason. To see that complete change and that arc of someone going from like a bit of comic relief to an absolutely tortured character is a really fun ride as an actor to do. And you know, I think it was representative of the show. The show had a lighter few first seasons, even though there was some dark stuff going on and some, you know, darker tones, there was still lightness in it, comedic stuff. And then it really just, when it became like, ultimately when Juice was on the run from season 4 on, and in prison, and the stuff with Manson and all, it just got, I think it was, we're watching like the true degradation, like the real derailment of a human being who was just caught in a bad position. So while I loved playing it, now that I'm watching it, I realize how painful it is to watch, because you're like, oh, but he was like such a good dude, and all these things went wrong. So I enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed doing it. I don't know so much if the people around me enjoyed me doing it, because it was a weird space, because I was never with anyone. If you look at that show, if you look at the last few seasons, I was never near these guys. I was always alone. So it was like we were on 2 different shows. So that's the only part I would have changed a little. I would have liked a little more interaction with everyone. But no, I loved it. I love the pie line. I got the cool line at the end. I love I just love that entire downfall of a human spirit.
I got in touch with how much uncomfortable I am with change, because I really bought into the dynamic of the original formula for Sons of Anarchy. The group that sat around the table, the nucleus, you know, everybody had a role, and then somewhere around season 5, everybody started jumping the shark, and whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, I hated it, because it became unrecognizable. It became something that was different than the thing that I had fallen in love with, and I was being asked to do things that were very uncomfortable, even though Clay was always supposed to be the bad guy, I didn't see him that way. And then I got all this stuff where I was forced to see him that way. Like, you're gonna put your foot in your head, get in there, you know. It's almost like being waterboarded. Well, no, it's not like being waterboarded, because that's really life or death serious. Sure. But this was uncomfortable, and I got in touch with the fact that I don't like change, especially that when it's that radical.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys do a phenomenal job of pointing out the people behind the scenes that helped you bring these characters to life. Were there certain character or writers, writer room participants that really helped build characters that you liked that we don't know about because we're not aware behind the camera?
Charles Murray, who, when he came on, which I think was maybe after, was it after? Well, you were on, he was on season 5, right? Yeah. So Charles, to me, was what we needed on the show. We have a movie out called The Devil You Know right now. He was the showrunner on True Story. He did Luke Cage as well. So we worked together a ton. I think that his presence and him being there was something that we all needed at the time. And I think that while he's an absolutely incredible writer, director, producer, just the holding together the certain personalities, and like Ron pointed out, things changed. Change is inevitable, but things changed, and when you hold on to an idea of the way things were earlier, it was bound to change. And he came on at a time when all that change was happening, and I can't imagine what would have happened if he wasn't there.
Gotcha. Ron, anybody for you?
I just hated all of them. Motherfucker.
What about Sean Connery?
Did he write on the show, man?
Yeah.
If he had.
That would have been amazing. Any other questions? Because I'm going to keep waxing. Yes. Go ahead. Is it true that you didn't know how to ride before the show?
No, there were a few people that knew how to ride. A lot.
The two guys who were on the stage didn't know how to ride before the show.
I had a license. Like, I had a motorcycle license. But I didn't ride. I didn't own a bike. I didn't have any money.
I didn't have a motorcycle license until season 4.
Wow.
Because I took lessons, and I, learned how to, kind of ride.
Yeah.
But nobody told me I needed to have a license. And it occurred to somebody, Ron doesn't have a license. He's an insurance risk. So.
Yeah, mine was like trial by fire. I had to learn right away. Yeah, I have 3 bikes. Yeah.
Woo!
Oh yeah.
With the baby cart.
Yeah, with the baby sidecar. Okay.
That's awesome. Now, when you went to buy your bikes, did they recognize you from the show? You're like, wait, Juice is going to buy a motorcycle?
I have the bike from the show,
right?
And then someone built me a bike, which was nice. And then and then Harley gave us a bike. So those are the 3 bikes. But to be completely honest, I have 2 little kids, 4 and 6, and I rode for basically 8 years straight every day,
right.
And then I stopped. Now that I live in Austin, I just don't. Once I had my kids, and this is just my decision, I was like, once texting became the main form of communication, I stopped riding motorcycles. Because no one's looking at the road anymore.
I get that.
Right.
So I was like, I'm going to be around for a minute. Yeah.
We appreciate that decision.
Thanks.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Ron, what about you? In terms of bikes, you got one from the show. Do you have any others?
No.
Do you want one?
No.
Okay. Simple enough. Simple
I like my vehicle with a top and sides and just a killer sound system.
He's got a pimped out Peloton.
That's what. Yeah, that's 100 miles easy right there.
It's a low riding
easy. Hello, friends.
Hi. If you guys could undo one character death on the show, other than your own, who would it be?
Undo?
This person didn't die. Any one person.
Piney.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I liked Piney. I liked Bill in general. I just liked him as an actor, and I liked his presence.
Yeah, I had to kill the motherfucker, so those were a few really awkward days. Because he didn't want to die, and I didn't want to kill him, and you got to do what's on the page.
What season is that? 4? Yeah.
I don't remember.
That's a good one.
I wish what was Sheriff Taylor's name?
I don't know.
There was a sheriff in the first season.
Deputy.
What was his name? Hale. Yeah, I wish he hadn't died, because once he died, all of the stuff he's writing for television now, none of us are ever going to get a part in. So I'd like to take that back.
There you go.
Just trying to put my kids through school, you know what I'm saying?
It's working man problem.
They're in their 40s, but they still got shit to learn.
That's right. Hello.
Hi. Quick comment. I'm a huge fan of 1,000 Ways to Die, in which Ron voiced, and that was one of the funniest shows I've ever heard, and I was wondering if that would ever come back. And one other quick question. How far in advance do you know what's going to happen with your characters? Like when you guys sign up in season 1, do you know what's going to happen to your character then? Or do you just kind of show up one day and they're like, hey, you're going to die today, and you just roll with that?
Well, when they were getting ready to kill me, was going to be at the end of season 6, and Kurt told me before we started shooting season 6, you're going to go this year. So that was nice, because I started taking my paycheck and sticking it in my mattress. That was one good thing. But no, you don't know what's coming. The scripts, you start out getting, the first 3, and then as you get later in the season, they're coming much more like right on time, because they get behind. And you just don't know what's going to happen from week to week till you get the script.
What about 1,000 Ways to Die?
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that, man. It's never coming back.
Yeah, I don't think that show can come back.
If you have copies of the original, just keep watching those.
Yeah. It's only 1,000 ways. Like, that's it. You can't do 1,001. I just wrote the whole series.
1,000 more.
Yeah.
I just said it better myself.
2,000 Ways.
Yeah, now you're just showing off. Like, this is it. Hello.
Yeah, hi, I'm a huge fan of Hellboy. I just wanted to know, are you open to play Cable in the MCU?
Wow.
Am I what?
Are you open to play Cable in the MCU?
I'm pissed off I didn't play him originally.
Hey.
I always felt like you were perfect for the role.
I did
like,
too.
Yeah, I always felt like you should have been Cable, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's just CGI that in there in our
All right,
hearts
we're
and
gonna
minds.
just CGI it in our minds.
Yeah.
And for I'm a huge fan of Luke Cage. I just realized you were up there. Huge fan of Luke Cage.
Right here.
He's not wearing a suit. That's what it is.
He wore sunglasses. That's why you didn't realize.
Tunnel vision.
I just wanted to say great work on that, and I was hoping they get renewed for another season and to see you on there more.
Yeah. We were about to go shoot it. We were about a few weeks away, and then everything just went down. So we had already read it. We knew what was happening, and it was going to be interesting. You're going to see Shades as Power Man's son and all that kind of stuff.
Is there a standing NDA that keeps you from saying anything that you might?
No, because the whole thing's changed now.
Okay.
So it's interesting because every time someone pops up from those series in the new stuff, it kind of gives you. I can't believe when I turn on Disney Plus and I see those there. I'm like, wow, these are like violent shows, and they're like right next to like Wreck-It Ralph. I'm like, there's Shades' picture next to Wreck-It Ralph. But I guess they have something when you hit it. Yeah. Now my kids see the whole thing, but it's interesting. Because those shows are way violent.
But for the right price, we will come to your house and act out what would have been.
What would have been, yeah.
Don't say that, because they'll get together.
But I heard Moon Knight's violent. Is Moon Knight violent?
Yes, Moon Knight is violent, but
as
not in the same
violent
way.
as those?
Yeah, there you go.
It's not like Luke Cage violent.
Right.
No.
Yeah. People end up shot, you don't see them get shot. That's what that is. Yeah.
That's not what we were doing.
Yeah. No. Now, okay, so considering, and we're gonna go there. In some cases, both shows, Luke Cage, Sons, you deal with like very realistic people, aspects of sensuality, deviancy. How did it feel bringing those things into those spaces?
Say it again.
To bring those concepts, very heavy, sexually mature concepts, into some of these spaces.
I never looked at it like a comic book. I just never looked at it like that. And then some of the graphic novels I was reading at the time, like Back to Brooklyn, and even obviously all the Frank Miller stuff was always based more in reality. So it was like that's how I saw comics anyway. I grew up reading Punisher War Journal and the stuff I read. So I always looked at it like they were all violent. But it wasn't. The movies kind of made I guess certain comics were less violent, but when, again, I come up in the age of graphic novels that were very violent. So I always looked at it like me, Alfred, Mahershala, we all felt like we were doing like The Wire just on a TV show. It just felt like that. We never looked at it like, if you would see something like heroic happen, you go, oh wow, I forgot we're on a superhero show. So it was just, we never looked at it like that. We looked at it like we would do any other show.
On Sons, the one character that has that hands in his pants problem, you know who we're talking about?
Chucky.
Yeah. I was trying not to be specific about what the problem was. But when they bring that to you, is that something where you go, this changes the dynamic of the show, this is not anything that is serious that we can do? Did that ever stop you guys?
It's one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen. That first one in the van with you. Ron, you remember the first time in the van when he's doing
I just remember, like it was impossible to act with this guy and not crack up. Because he went for it, man. There was nothing suggested about this. Was literal, like, and me and Charlie were like.
But like, you guys knew that from the writing process that was going to be his character trope.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean, you can't describe what he did. Michael Ornstein knew what he was going to do, but none of the rest of us did.
That is wild. Do you have any thoughts in terms of costuming? Obviously, you've worn very different costumes in different forms. That were your favorite aspects? Was it something that is a little bit more everyday with Sons that you appreciated, or do you like the more fantastic things?
No, it's just like.
couple things for Tai Chi. A little bit of Chen style Tai Chi, a little bit of Yang style Tai Chi, a little bit of Xingyi, and a little bit of Bagua.
All right.
So you kind of get a little everything. Hello. Come on in, have a seat. Just sort of get a little prelim demo in, and we'll get started.